Okay, I think we're going to jump into the presentation then. So building off of what someone just said, line 3 is a pipeline replacement being built by Enbridge, which is a Canadian multinational company. They're going to be employing over 3,000 out-of-state workers, which is pretty detrimental considering that there's a national pandemic going on right now, and it's going to transport close to 1 million barrels of tar sands from all the way from Alberta, Canada to Superior, Wisconsin per day. And it is not a pipeline replacement exactly. As you can see on the map, they're building a lot of new line and it's going to transport, this is Enbridge's biggest project, so it's going to transport a lot of tar sands every day. So a history of Enbridge. Enbridge is responsible for the 2010 pipeline spill in Michigan, where close to 1 million gallons of tar sands leaked into the Kalamazoo River, and it's also responsible for the largest inland spill in the US, which occurred right here in Grand Rapids, Minnesota in 1999, where it spilled 1.7 gallons of oil. And tar sands isn't easy to clean up. Right now, they're still cleaning up the spill in the Kalamazoo River. It wrecks the water, it wrecks the land which we live on. And tar sands contains like close to 30% more carbon than normal oil. So the carbon from the tar sands makes its way to the top of the water where it gets released into the atmosphere, and the tar sands itself is really heavy, so it leaks to the bottom. And that's one reason why it's very hard to clean up. It's very expensive, and these spills still haven't been cleaned up today. So additionally, Enbridge's reportedly averages one spill every 20 days. And this is just what Enbridge reported. So they're supposedly spilling, their pipelines are spilling a lot more than this. So the pipeline, this specific pipeline is going to cross over 100 bodies of water, including the Mississippi River and the Mississippi headwaters. And as previously mentioned, pipeline spill. So if it spills into the Mississippi River, that will be a problem. So echoing what Jason said at the beginning of the meeting, we are on Anishinaabe land. So pipelines threaten the culture, way of life, and literal survival for Native people. This pipeline also violates treaty rights by endangering areas of fishing, hunting, wild rice, and cultural resources in the 1855 treaty territory. This pipeline could likely spill, ruining the land which Native people live on. And additionally, this pipeline violates sovereignty. It does not have the consent of many of the tribes' territory it is being built on. So this just speaks to modern day colonialism, where even though Native people are voicing their opposition to this pipeline, Enbridge is continuing to go through with it, and the government is continuing to support it, even though it's literally endangering Indigenous lives and it's endangering our future as young people. So additionally, what happens with these pipelines is man camps are built, which is where the workers stay. And these man camps are hubs for sexual trafficking. So these out-of-state workers, while they're here, they're like, why not make a couple more bucks off of the sexual trafficking industry? So it's directly linked to the missing and murdered Indigenous women epidemic. It's putting women at risk, not even only Indigenous women, but also women nearby. So environmental effects, we kind of touched on this earlier, but tar sands is one of the worst kinds of oil. Even to extract it, it takes about as much energy to extract as the energy it actually produces. Enbridge is continuing to go through with this project because it's still making profit though. So it's not the most efficient way to get energy. And so line 3 also cuts through the Mississippi River twice, and wild rice, which is sacred to Indigenous people. It's cutting through 112 bodies of water total, and the old pipeline is still in the ground. They're just going to let it corrode in the ground. They're not even going to bother to get rid of it. So pipelines, again, specifically Enbridge pipelines, have a history of leaking. And then this also is going to contribute to climate change. So emissions are going to be equal to roughly 50 new coal power plants. And the social cost of carbon for this project has been seen to equal approximately $287 billion. So right now, Enbridge, a Canadian company, is getting a little profit right now. Out-of-state workers are getting a salary, but the long-term effects are going to be much more detrimental to both the environment and our economy. And quite frankly, this pipeline really isn't benefiting Minnesotans. It's not. Most of the workers are out of state, and it's not helping our economy. So who can stop this? If any of you have been following this Line 3, the replacement project, you've seen a lot of protests, maybe like the governor's mansion protests targeted at Tim Walz. So at this point, it's unlikely that Tim Walz is going to put a stay on the permits. He had originally approved the permits, but so right now, most of the focus is going towards Biden, who can stop Line 3 through the Army Corps of Engineers. And then senators and representatives such as Ilhan Omar have sent letters to Biden urging him to revoke the permits. And we're going to talk more about ways you can get involved in protests and get the attention of Biden later on. So then additionally, we can stop this pipeline. Water protectors right now are sacrificing their bodies in order to halt construction. There are protests in the Twin Cities, which are raising awareness to get politicians to act. And we're also putting pressure on Minnesotans. And the national movement is growing as we're gaining more awareness around this issue. So now we're kind of going to turn into the what can you do portion of this presentation. So we wanted to open it up to you guys to either unmute or type in the chat. What are some ideas you have? We already touched on protests, but you can talk about like past protests, or anything you know about like what you think we can do to help stop this pipeline.
Yeah, even something you think may be a good idea, some sort of protest you may be seen on social media, something you've personally participated in, anything is of interest to us.
And this is Nancy, and I just want to introduce myself really quick. I'm with the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe. I am a Northern organizer for Minnesota 350 and a co-founder of Rise Coalition. And I just want our listeners to understand today too, is if you join our work at minnesota350.org /treaty pledge, we do have a campaign, a team working on treaty obligation, and that's one way we can stop this pipeline. We work to defend our treaties because our treaties were signed to preserve our culture as Native people and for us to live as good neighbors and good stewards of the earth. So at Minnesota 350, we have engaged in a treaty pledge. So I encourage you guys to find that at minnesota350.org /treaty pledge.
Yeah, so answering a couple questions or comments that I've seen. Is there any call lines or petitions you know of? The Treaty Pledge is a great one. There is some call lines per se. There's a lot of phone banking going on, so I'll link that at the end of the meeting. There's definitely other petitions that I'll link at the end of the meeting. And then Sophia said a while ago, I saw an Instagram post that peaceful protesters of Line 3 were arrested. So I called the number the post provided to ask for their release. Yep, that's definitely something that you can do. You can also go up there and up north and be a peaceful protester yourself, if that's something that you're capable of doing. But yeah, people are getting arrested weekly up north as water protectors. So nobody else, let's see. Yeah, pressure politicians to oppose felony free speech bill, which would impact protect rights. Yeah, so there's definitely, yeah, putting pressure on politicians is a big thing. Protest rights, that makes a little more sense. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, pressuring politicians is a big one. But we're gonna jump into all the specific ways that you can help. Nancy, this is your time to talk about anything you'd like to, and then we'll kind of go on from there.
Okay. All right. Again, I am Nancy. I'm Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, Leech Lake, and I am here on the Leech Lake Reservation, and been with the resistance since I came home from Standing Rock. And one of my biggest projects I'm working on is our treaty pledge and our scenario planning here in Bemidji, Minnesota. And what we do in our scenario planning is we created a roundtable discussion for ways that we can be inclusive and imagine a future together. So on a local note, that's one thing you can do is engage with your city and county officials. And what most people don't understand is that here in Indian country, northern Minnesota, where this pipeline is running through, is that they do not have the free, prior, and informed consent of the people. So when Enbridge says they have tribal approval, they have actually persuaded 3 out of 5 of our elected officials, because for each tribe, we have a chairman, a secretary treasurer, and 3 reps. And they're elected by the people of the tribe to represent us. And what happens is our tribal leaders fail to inform the people and give us a referendum vote under our Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. And what happens is that we're left out of the dialogue, and Enbridge, all they need to do is to persuade 3 out of 5 of our elected officials to get the majority vote and get the right of way. So once these corporations have the right of way here in northern Minnesota, they go after their permitting processes and things like that. So once they get the easement, the big part of the work is done for them. And so here in northern Minnesota, in our work with RISE and Minnesota 350, we bring attention to people not having consent in this pipeline. So Enbridge is not completely truthful when they say they have tribal approval. So some of the work we're doing is to define what a tribe is. I mean, this day and age, we still have to do that. And we also have to define sovereignty, because that's our inherent right as a Native people. And so what treaties have done for us and for you, those non-Native people that might be listening today, is that our treaties gave the colonizers the right to be here, the right to own land, the right to hunt, fish, and gather. And the misconception is that they think that's us. So what we're trying to do is re-educate people on treaty obligations, because 1, they were intended for us to be good neighbors, and 2, good stewards of the earth. So we hold space trying to educate people on how treaties not only protect us, but protect you guys as well. So we want to engage as treaty partners and make sure that our legislators and our senators understand there is a treaty obligation, and that as people of the United States, we all have to uphold those. And we feel at this point that Line 3 can be stopped with treaty. And in order to do that, we have to keep talking about our treaty responsibility, holding space. So up north here, we are actually, we got a couple treaty camps, and one of them is the White Earth. There's no Ojibwe name for it, but I I got to learn how to pronounce it yet, but it's the Monoman Protector Camp, and then we have the Red Lake Treaty Camp. So you're going to see less direct action there, but you're going to find a treaty stand. So we call on all of our non-native allies to come up to one of those two camps or any of the camps and just hold space in a non-violent way and making a stand for our treaty obligations to be good neighbors and good stewards of the earth. And another thing you can call on, and is call Governor Walz. You know, as a youthful person, you need to engage with our Walz administration and tell them that the Executive Order 19-24, the government to government executive order, should have some meaning to it. And what we see in regards to Line 3, Red Lake, White Earth, and now Mille Lacs have yet to be heard in court. So the Executive Order 1924 means nothing to us now, and it's actually an insult to, you know, that government to government relationship. So I encourage you guys to, you know, call the Walz administration and tell them to listen to our people here in northern Minnesota, because Native lives matter too. And then another thing, like I mentioned before, Line 3 also violates our Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. Our preamble states that we are to conserve our natural resources for the well-being of our people and our descendants. So a lot of you know, non-native people don't understand is that not only does Line 3 violate the treaty obligations to be good neighbors and good stewards, it actually violates our Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. And these are some of the legal things that we do in the northern part of Minnesota and Indian country. So there's two sides to this fight. There's a non-native side and there's a native side. And we're very, very honored and very, very pleased that our non-native people have stood in solidarity with us, because without our allies, we don't have the money. We don't have, you know, the spaces that have been created for us. These non-profit organizations have given us. So we look forward to continue building relationships, and then it's a pleasure to see the youth like yourselves stepping it up. And we hope someday soon we see you up here in northern Minnesota in our camps. And you can reach out to us at Rise Coalition on Facebook and just inbox us if you want to come and visit, and we'll make sure we accommodate you guys. So get those boots out and let's defend those treaties together, because water is life. Miigwech.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, so we're going to dig in a little bit to direct action and indirect action up north, as well as in the cities. So first and foremost, talking a little bit about environmental racism, the work of Indigenous organizers, and then kind of digging into your own place in your fight currently, and then where we can go from here. So environmental justice is a little bit different from environmentalism. It acknowledges the fact that environmental issues disproportionately affect marginalized groups. In this case, Line 3 is a perfect example. So the environmental crisis is just another system where people of color are structurally affected more, which is also known as environmental racism. Indigenous leaders have been fighting this pipeline in the courts and on the water for years. Line 3, like I said before, is one example of environmental racism. And just to point out the fact that this fight expands further than Line 3, the idea of colonization and the ways in which colonizers have affected treaties and Indigenous people since they first landed here. Line 3 is just another chapter to the story. So understand how you may be directly or indirectly supporting ways in which colonizers have done negative things to Indigenous people, especially on Line 3. So supporting multinational corporations, politicians, and other groups that are causes for this pipeline's current construction being made. So one example, which we'll dig into a little bit in the next slide, is banks. Chase is one that's been targeted a lot lately. I know in the cities with some protests. And then politicians, Governor Walz, President Biden are both two examples of politicians that have the power to do something and aren't necessarily doing the best. And then we'll also get into mutual aid a little bit more, but mutual aid is a really great way to step foot in the fight if you can't be on the ground. Yeah, so banks, JP Morgan Chase, Citi, Bank of America, TD, which is Canadian, and Union Bank in the US and Japan are supporting Enbridge. And on March 31st, these banks have the option to choose not to renew the 2.16 billion of credit to Enbridge. So that is a lot of money that can be taken away from Enbridge if this campaign of defunding Line 3 or telling banks to do so is taken. And we'll add links to that as well and how you can kind of get involved with that. This is a good opportunity to not necessarily go up if you can't make it up the 2-hour trip to Duluth, or not Duluth, but northern Minnesota or other places. This is a good place to work from home and still make a difference. Yeah, so direct action and specifically the training that a lot of people ask people that are going to be going up north to take versus urban actions and indirect actions. So an indirect action would be something like possibly the banks, emailing legislators, phone banking, which is something that we'll link as well, versus direct action and the training that goes along with it is being up north, being a water protector, and either standing in solidarity or putting your body on the line to protect the water and the land that is historically indigenous land. So this is something that there's a 4-hour training that we will link as well. I know we have a lot of links, but I'll make sure to send a follow-up email. And direct actions aim to put a physical barrier in the construction of the pipeline. So people will tie themselves down to the pipeline or stand in the street where trucks are trying to come into the pipe and put the pipeline down. So a lot of things that are directly halting construction and slowing down the insertion of the pipeline, that's a direct action. Urban actions do a lot to raise awareness. And a lot of times, like I know there were a lot at the governor's mansion, they aim to hold politicians responsible for the decisions that they're making that hurt indigenous people and the movement of Line 3. And then indirect actions, which I kind of said before, phone banking, writing letters, sending emails, those are all good ways to do things from home. I know with a pandemic, not everyone has the opportunity to head up north or involve themselves in an urban action, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be involved at all. And then specifically talking about heading up north, affinity groups are a big part of that. So they're the main way in which participants of direct action kind of communicate, and this helps ensure safety for those putting their time and bodies on the line. There's a big security culture is a big part of direct action. So making sure that people that are consistently getting arrested and stuff like that are safe from possibly outside perpetrators kind of involving themselves in an affinity group in order to get more information and kind of stop the Line 3 movement. So affinity groups are a good way to kind of help with that security culture, but still have a group where you can be together and helping each other. So like I know in my affinity group, we always go through a little bit of like, are you planning on getting arrested today? What group are you in? Because there's usually a green group, which people that don't plan on getting arrested, then a red group, people that are maybe planning on getting arrested. So having that group to kind of be, okay, I'm planning on getting arrested. Here's like some things that you need to know in case I do, so that I don't have to worry about that if I'm in jail and I can't contact my family. Like you can do that maybe. So that's something we definitely work on, and affinity group is a big part of that. And then getting into the Northfield against Line 3, they conduct a direct action training. Again, I will link that, but it was really good when I did it because I didn't know a lot about security culture and kind of the idea of these direct action trainings. But they're over 2 days, 2 hours each day, so 4 hours total. And then we invite you to join our affinity group after you've done that training. Ours has got a lot of youth in it, so it's a place where I think you'll all feel comfortable and able to kind of involve yourselves if you have the capacity in direct action. But in terms of kind of involving yourselves with direct action from your house, mutual aid, a lot of these people up north need a lot of mutual aid. There's camps and stuff up north for people that are staying there full time, and a lot of those people sometimes need money. People getting arrested often need money for bail or something like that. And then a big one that Northfield against Line 3 actually keyed me into was Watch the Line. So if you can't be in person with some water protectors because maybe COVID safety or you just don't have the capacity, Watch the Line. You're able to kind of drive up and down where Line 3 is and see where people are working. And it just kind of helps forecast for organizers where they can kind of focus their actions. Yeah, so some social media. There's a lot more, and I'll be sure to kind of key you guys into that. But Honor the Earth is one. That's where I have done some direct action. So they have a camp up north, and there was like right next to Line 3. It was a really cool experience, and I enjoyed it a lot. Northfield against Line 3, they're conducting the direct action trainings, and Resist Line 3 is another organization. There's many more. I know Nancy talked a little bit about the groups that she's working on, but there's a lot of people working really hard to stop this, and you can too. So I just want to leave time for some questions. We have a little less than 10 minutes. I don't know if there's like a definitive end necessarily. But first of all, I do want to make sure, just in case there is a definitive end, people can share their emails if they're comfortable. And then I can kind of give a follow-up email with some information that we talked about today and ways to involve yourself. And I'll copy those and send one follow-up email after that. If you have any questions about direct action or really anything that we've talked about today, or that's something that you've heard but would like to know more about, please feel free to jump in right now.
And I just wanted to add something really quick. Some people are not sure how to show up in camp or if camp is for them because, the direct action and they're not ready for the direct action. But if you come into camp, there's all kinds of different roles you can play, and you can stay in camp. You don't have to go out and take part in action if you're not ready for it. But, I'm going to share really quick. My experience with Standing Rock kind of lit my fire, and I wasn't about direct action, but going to Standing Rock and taking part actually was a way for me to face my fears. And I'm kind of fearless now, and that's because I showed up and kind of was mentored and inspired by so many great people in camp. So I encourage you guys. I know it's COVID, but we practice COVID-19 safety protocols, and so we invite you guys up north if you have the capacity. And thank you for creating the space tonight.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, definitely going up north isn't the only way to get involved. I know for me, being in high school and not having like transportation, my parents don't want me to get arrested. It's really hard for me to go up north, so it's really easy to get involved in like urban actions, phone banking, emailing, or sending letters to people investing in the pipeline. So if you guys want to hear anything else about that, be sure to tell us so we can give you more information.
Right, and one more note, you can create resistance art from home too and help with the messaging. So, and it's, if you got a creative mind, that's a great way to spend some of your energy or your free time.
Yeah, there was a really cool, I think it was MN350 art kind of haul last week, and there was a lot of really cool art. So I'll link that as well in the follow-up email.
I also just want to echo Nancy that like going up north is not necessarily like, it's not like you go to one action, you're definitely getting arrested, or like you can go to camp and play support roles. And happy to like talk through the details of that with people who do have the like transportation, the ability to do that. I also understand that transportation is really hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of itty-gritty details that we could get into about direct actions and transportation and money and all those things. But if that's something you're really interested in, we have an affinity group, and like I said, that's a good place to kind of make yourself feel at home, and we can help you through that.
How should people get in contact with you about the affinity group? Should they reply to that email?
Yeah, I'll just put my email in the chat as well, but I'll be emailing everyone that put their email in the chat as well. So either way, sounds good. Yeah, I am on the like youth climate, the website that was used, is it called Shed, to kind of perform this as well. So I think my email's linked in there. Any questions? Anybody planning to maybe get involved with direct action or something else that we've talked about today?
Also, any questions or comments just on line 3 in general? I know we threw a lot of information at you, and some of you might not be as familiar with line 3.
Is there any way that you could maybe link the presentation that you guys used, just so like maybe I could study it on my own time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can do that. Not the most techie person, but let me figure it out.
Also, I know stopline3.org is a really good resource for finding information, as well as MN350.
Is that on Facebook, Nancy?
Yeah, and one more thing, I was just thinking when I'm listening to you children, you young adults, I should say, is politics, to engage in politics, learn how to be a delegate, show up to local precincts, because there you can write resolutions that help protect the environment, or and it helps you to build strength when you work from one precinct to the next. So we're learning how to play the world of politics, and learning how to play pretty well here in northern Minnesota. We just got 2 Native Americans elected onto our Bemidji City Council. And those guys are going to make a huge difference on equality for not just our people, but for the environment. So engage in politics and learn how to show up and be powerful leaders, because the future is yours.